Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Yankees Farm Report. As I've been away for a few weeks. Thanks to Marcus for filling in, and also Mark from Bronx Muchachos. Thank you guys for filling in. Been working on my house, so again, I'm trying to do the best that I can to get these episodes out to you guys. Right now, I'm stuck in a tiny corner trying to do this, so let's get it done. Aaron, Kev, thank you guys for coming on. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing fine, man. Thank you for having me. It's been a while since I've been on. I've
Yeah.
also been a little hectic with my son's baseball schedule and trying to get out there to these Somerset Patriot games. So I'm glad to be
Mm.
back, glad to be talking Yankee prospects. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Been on this a little bit too much. A lot of anxiety
Yep. Yep.
with the trade deadline, but it's a fun time of year. That some pretty interesting trades have already gone
Uh,
down. Hopefully,
Congratulations. I will say congratulations to you. I saw you're part of a Nats group now.
yeah, it was funny. I was just, I think as you guys know, and for anyone watching doesn't know, I just on my Twitter/X account at AJ_Lick, LICH, I just wrote on Medium my thoughts on prospects, both Yankees and Nationals. I grew up a Yankee fan from DC, so I liked the Nationals when they moved there. And yeah, just the Nats report came into my DMs like, hey, do you want to write for us? Absolutely. I'd love to help your platform. So yeah, first two articles were analyzing the Ahmad Rosario trade. So, talking about Clayton Beeter and Brown Martinez. And then today was, scrambling to write about the Jake Eder and I can't remember his name. He's the first baseman we got from the Angels. So yeah, no, it's exciting to get to write for them, but I'm still covering the Yankees, still watching their prospects and ready to talk about them with you.
All right. Before we get into it, I want to thank the channel members for helping keep the lights on. I appreciate all of you guys, all the subscribers who comment, hit that like button, hit the sub button. Thank you for all the engagement. The channel is closing in on 4,000 sub. Thank you all for that. For the 65 percenters of you guys that are first timer, please hit the sub button, turn on those notifications. If you're interested in Yankee prospects, we'll give you all that information here. Let's getting right into it. Let's just move into the players of the week. Down at Tampa, I had Willie Montero, who's been pretty hot since he came off of the IL. Last week he hit 400 with an 800 OPS. Edglin Perez hit 250 with a 607 OPS. He just continues to walk. It's pretty much his bread and butter. Alan Facundo, last week through 4 innings, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. I'm a big Alan Facundo fan, if you guys didn't know. Uh, Gus Hughes threw 3 1/3 shutout innings, 2 strikeouts. Kate Austin, two shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. Second, I had Willie Montero and Gus Hughes both as my prospects of the week down there. I don't know how much you've been paying attention to Tampa, but they're pretty much reeling right now after a hot streak last month.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've kind of been a weird revolving door. A lot of guys have been coming back for rehabs in the pitching and, a lot of trades.
Mhm.
They lost Gage Zeal, the promotion of Andrew Landry. And so, some of the guys who were holding down the fort have left them. But it's good to see Willie Montero back.
Mhm.
It's hard to believe it, but he's still 20. Yeah, I guess he's about to turn 21, but
Mhm.
he's not an absurd age for the level. So, it's still, he has a lot to prove,
Mhm.
but, it's like you said, he had a good week and, just keep building on that and building up that status, will be good for him.
I'm not sure yet if any of the draft kids are going to show up. If they do, I know they had the seventh rounder from Alabama. I forgot his name.
Richie Bonamolo.
He's one of them. Is it possible that you would be surprised if Willie Montero was pushed to Hudson Valley?
I think we got to see what other deals are made. Right now the Yankees have only traded pitchers. I guess they traded Brown Martinez,
Mhm.
but that's in the DSL, that's the only bat they've dealt. So, it's until there's maybe some movement with some bats, I'm not sure exactly, what the configuration will be. I will say, I know we're going to get to him, but there's a certain outfielder in Hudson Valley who could probably be pushed up. And if
Mhm.
that happens, I think between Willie Montero or Marshall Toole, One of those guys should be going to Hudson Valley. I would lean Hudson Marshall Tool, just a
Mhm.
little older, more experienced, and having played this whole year. But we'll see. I wouldn't complain if Willie Montero gets a chance to hit Hudson Valley.
And since we're on Tampa, I got to bring it up. Roderick Arias. I mean, I know he's not having the season that we all were hoping for, especially off the way he finished the last season. He has struggled pretty much all season, but in that same breath, the Yankees did draft, what was it, 4 shortstops? Granted, not all of them are going to play shortstops. Maybe 2 of them are. Could we possibly be looking at Roderick being pushed up if Kent and were to debut, or Dax were to debut?
I don't know, man. Like I'm looking at his numbers, and with the Yankees, sometimes with the Yankee front office, you just sometimes you can predict things, but sometimes you really can't. So,
Mhm.
listen, I know Roderick hasn't had this year that we all expected, but last year late he got hot.
Mhm.
So, I think it all depends on that. These next few days are going to determine a lot. There's a lot of Rule 5 guys. You mentioned two, Montero and Facundo. So it's like I think we gotta wait a couple of days to see. I don't see them pushing them up. I really don't, man. I see them keeping them there. If anything, I just don't see it. I don't know if Aaron sees it, but you never know with the Yankee front office.
But
But
the only reason that I think that is because you have Emmanuel Tara, who just debuted this season, right? You have him there. You have Juan Mathis, who's
Hot
had a
start
pretty
for
good
him.
season, right?
mhm.
Juan Mathis has been pretty good all season long. You also have Cobb is there. They're pretty full in the infield there, and now you're adding
Yeah.
bodies. That's why I think of it. And another thing is that, and I've mentioned this to several people, Jason Dominguez and even George Lombard did not have the best seasons at Tampa. They didn't start to really kind of take off until they hit Hudson Valley. So could Roderick see that same type of effect where he gets to Hudson Valley and all of a sudden something clicks for him?
I'll just kind of say this, and I don't have their 2024 numbers, but just looking at their 2025 metrics is, he's got a zone contact percentage of under 74%, which is very not good. He's got an average chase rate, but below average contact rates out of the zone. Obviously, we know about the strikeouts. His exit velocities aren't as great as I thought they would be, knowing how hard he could hit it. It's some of the under the hood stuff is just not there. Whereas for Lombard, there were good signs, especially, in that second half of his time in Tampa when he was really starting to show more. Um, so my stance on it is, clearly he's struggling. He's not had a good season. I think for me, he's lost a lot of his prospect status, but I also do think that we're still talking about a guy who doesn't turn 21 for another month. Um, and if there is a space in A plus in Hudson Valley, I don't think it's the worst thing to just put him up there and see if the change of scenery does help. Because
Mhm.
he's not. I know Bobby Malone. Bobby, if you watch this, sorry to call you out, but I know you love to include him in those your trade baseball trade values.
Roderick, Henry
Um,
Delane, Carlos Legrand,
and
the
he has
suspect.
like a what? He has like a 5+ value, but like he's
And
not
Jason,
valued.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not valued like that, amongst MLB front offices.
that's a
So,
great point.
I think at this point it's just either he fails out, I mean, it sucks because he seems like a really good young kid, and you hate to see it for a guy who has the potential he does, but either he flames out, or maybe moving up kind of reignites some of that elite those elite tools in him, and he plays well. So I don't think he should be called up on any merit or under the hood stuff, but more of just like maybe just give him a fresh look, get out to Florida, get to New York, and maybe it'll help him.
Yeah, agreed there. I also wonder if he was affected at all by not starting the season at Hudson Valley, because everyone that I've spoken to um, did tell me, hey, that he was told he would be starting at Hudson Valley, and that was the
Interesting.
expectation. So I'm wondering if that had any
That's
effect on
probably
him.
it's clear that he kind of lost his confidence. And as funny as that seems, we're seeing it now in the major league sometime. What we talk about Volpe, sometimes when these players lose their confidence, they forget who they are and what their
Mhm.
essence is. So sometimes you're right. I actually like that idea. Maybe a change of scenery does help things click and maybe motivates him a little better. Change of coaches as well will help. So I mean, it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully, the Yankees take that route. I'm not. I don't want to give up on him yet. But like
Oh, definitely.
Aaron said, the under the hood stuff doesn't look phenomenal at the moment. But
Moving on to Hudson Valley, you had Dylan Lewis hit 429, 1100 OPS, two extra base hits, three RBIs. Jose Colmenares, who did get a nod from Pipeline as a player of the week. In the league, he did hit 389 with a 1365 OPS, four extra base hits, two home runs, eight RBIs, three walks, two steals. Kobe Morales, who's been hot of late, hit 318 with a 764 OPS, an extra base hit, three RBIs. And Kyle Carr pitched to a 0.79 ERA over 11 innings of work, one run, three walks, 11 strikeouts. I still have no understanding of why he's still here. Ben Hess pitched four and two-thirds shutout innings, no walks, love that, six strikeouts. Jeffrey Gilbert pitched two and a third innings of shutout relief baseball with five strikeouts.
you said you don't know why
Yeah.
Kyle Carr is still here?
No, Kakar has had a very good season,
Yeah.
I think, and especially, and I looked at him over the last, I think, 9 games. I think he's under a 1 ERA over those last 9 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know I've talked about on here before. I'm not a big
Real
Kyle
quick,
Carr fan.
real
Oh,
quick,
go
over
on.
the last 9 starts, Kyle Carr is pitching to a 0.72 ERA,
Oh my
50,
God.
50 innings of work, 51 strikeouts. Hitters are hitting 161 against him during those 9 games.
Yeah, let me see. I've just pulled it up also. Let me see. 51 strikeouts. I mean, it's like pretty good strikeout rate. Let me just see if I'm just gonna
I mean,
calculate this real
for
quick out of
what happens
curiosity.
to Kyle Carr is that he just gets lost in the shuffle, right? You had all the other big names and guys that are posting crazy strikeout numbers, so Kyle Carr kind of gets overlooked a bit, but the man just goes about his business.
His batting average against is 188.
Hmm.
I mean, that's
So
that's
so in that span, if I calculated this right, in those 9 games and those 50 innings, he has a 29.5 K percentage and a
Jesus.
12.1 walk percentage, which is still high. But yeah, you mentioned it. He was lost in the shuffle, and I think, I don't want to say deservingly, so that sounds harsh, but it makes sense because he doesn't have loud stuff. His
Hmm.
fastball is low 90s. I know he throws a little bit of a cutter slash slider, and he has
Hmm.
a sweeper. But yeah, it's not loud stuff, and it's just for a guy who doesn't have loud stuff like that, you'd expect some more control, and it just wasn't there. Um, but yeah, it's I so I one of the times I've been on here recently, I just I admitted it, he's not a guy I'm high on. He's not a guy he's in my top 30. He might be pushing into that back end of the top 30 depending on how the rest of the trade deadline goes. But it's just the stuff wasn't there, the control command wasn't there, and it was just hard to see. I understand he had a great ERA, but he's not doing it how you want to see process wise. But this last, yeah, 50 innings have been very good, and it's I think that he definitely deserves a promotion. I still think we're probably ultimately looking at a bullpen arm.
Hmm.
And that's okay.
Uh,
That's how minor league baseball works, but he's definitely showing signs of life, given how if he's, the first, I would say 75% of last year was for him. So yeah, no, I agree. I think he's basically proven everything he had everything he can in Hudson Valley.
and
Yeah,
he's also put
I,
in over 150 innings of work at Hudson Valley over
Yeah.
the last two seasons.
yeah.
Hmm.
So to me, it's time.
And right before this last couple of hot games, he had two outings where he had five walks, which is what Aaron was saying there. And honestly, like you said, a bullpen arm, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We all know how Yankees are struggling to get lefty arms.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would, yeah, I can definitely see him getting promoted, and see how he does at the next level. At this point, sometimes it clicks for guys late, and it's time for them to move on and keep it moving. So,
I mean,
hopefully we'll see that soon.
He has really good numbers versus lefties, especially. So, like, I mean, not that he can't pitch both ways, but if he were to be in the bullpen one day, he could definitely be a guy you can count to get lefties out.
Absolutely,
With that cutter and with that with that sweeper. So,
we
yeah,
need that desperately.
yeah.
Speaking of lefty relievers, what do you think of Jeffrey Gilbert?
on the
Yeah,
averages.
he's definitely an older guy. I'm just gonna pull his stats up here just because I like to, have him when I talk. But I know he's an older guy. He's 24. I know I remember him being pretty good last year,
I think it was the year
in
before. I think last year he
Tampa.
was hurt.
So last year, yeah, last year he was hurt. He only pitched 7 innings. But
But
in
the year before,
2023, he was very sharp. He had a lot of good swing and miss stuff. With the walks, which you expect. Which I guess that's how I prefer a reliever other than a guy who doesn't get Ks. I think that's something we complain about with the Yankees. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, no, I think he's been very impressive. 33.6 K percentage to 11.2 walk percentage. I think that's something that can work as a reliever. It's obviously don't really love that walk percentage from a starter, but that's not what he is. 41% ground ball rate, getting the ball on the ground is great. 16.6% swinging strike rate, so he's missing a lot of bats. There's some good underlying stuff there.
Mhm,
From what I remember from the stuff, it's like low to mid 90s fastball. It's not
mhm.
overpowering, but I know he has a pretty solid sweeper as well. Um, yeah, it's the Yankees. I feel like, we talk a lot about their pitching development, and obviously their starting pitching development has been awesome this year. But I think from a relief standpoint, we've kind of seen some regression. Eric Razelman's had a bad year. Bryce Worker, who was really high on early in the year, has kind of regressed. Tony Rossi, who is, an older guy that they, it's UDFA from the
Yeah, I'm still
2024
I'm big
drafts.
on Rossi, but I think Rossi might be hitting a wall because of
Yeah, I mean he's
the work
20 he's
work
also
he's put in.
26 years old. It's 26-year-old A plus. Like I think he's been good, but like it's not as easy to get excited about a 26-year-old reliever in high A as it is about Brendan Beck, who's doing good work in Scranton. I know he was like through 3 innings scoreless today. I don't know how it's gone since then. Um, but yeah, it's just hasn't been a great year for the true relievers. You don't have a Jack Neely
Yeah,
going through the
one guy that I did
system,
like
or
at Somerset, I wasn't gonna mention him, but Will Bryant was having a pretty good season.
I
I
think
know
he's
he's
hurt,
been
right?
yeah, I was gonna say he's been on and
Yeah.
off on the IL, but he was having a good season.
But yeah, I mean, all this is to say, I've been rambling here for a bit, but it's good. He's definitely been a good reliever. I kind of in my rankings of relievers, I kind of keep a section for guys who I think have legitimate prospect at being a MLB reliever, and guys who I think are just kind of organizational depth. And he's still in the prospect area of it, and I think that's
Mhm.
for good reason. So. Yeah, good. It's good to see him having a good year and having a hot, July, and it's another name where it's we'll see where we stand after the deadline, but if there's a spot in in Somerset, it'd be cool to see him go there at this point in his career.
Mm. Moving on to Somerset, you had Dylan Hassel who hit 444 this week. 963 OPS, an extra base hit, 4 RBIs. Rock Riggio hit 259 with 842 OPS, 4 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, a stolen base. On the pitching side of things, you had ERC. He pitched to a 2.59 ERA over 7 innings of work, 2 runs, 2 walks, seven strikeouts. Carlos Lagrange, 5 innings, 1 run, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts. Tristan Vreeling had a really good outing today or last week at 4.4 and 2/3 shutout innings. 2 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts.
I just want to tell a quick fun story. So one of my good friends from college, he's from Detroit. He travels, into Ohio and Pennsylvania for work sometimes. And I think he was in Pittsburgh, and he decided he was a Tigers fan, so he drove up to Erie to go
Mm,
see the Erie Seawolves, who were playing Somerset, and on Tuesday. And he was asking me about who these Yankees guys are. So I'm like, yeah, like George Lombard's a great he's our number one prospect. Brendan Jones is a guy I really like. Rock Riggio's been hot, and I was telling him ERC is a good pitcher. He's like, oh, we're gonna smack him. Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal and
mm,
Briseño. I believe Briseño's there, and yeah, and ERC put together a really nice outing
hmm
against probably the best minor league lineup there is right now. Um, and he had another great outing on it last night.
Yeah.
Was it last night? Yeah, it was like 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, and like 6 strikeouts
Actually,
around there.
I think he went 7 innings last night. 7 innings, two,
Might have, yeah. But yeah, I think it's been,
Six,
become
six.
mhm.
it's been become such a talking point of what Carlos Narvaez has done for the Red Sox this year. And, he's been great. I'm happy for him. He's definitely slowed down some, but, it's each start ERC makes,
Mhm.
it's especially now that he's in Double A, it's just
Mhm.
one bit closer to saying, oh, that this is a lot more, this makes it look a
And
lot better.
and for Elmer, all of his starts at Double A, which are three of them, have all been quality starts. So that's
Hmm.
Yeah.
promising.
Yeah, I
I'm
remember the first start was a little wild, right?
Mhm.
Like not
Right,
bad, but not great.
but I think it was defensive lapses. Uh, I think he gave up. I want to say 3 or 4 runs, but I think two were earned.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm listen, this is one of the guys that I'm very excited about, especially since Boston Red Sox fans have been rubbing it in our face about Narvaez. And I'm like really excited for this kid since we got him. Like, so I haven't seen him pitch. I live close to Somerset, Aaron, so I try to go out there as much as I
Yeah.
can. I haven't
Mhm.
seen him pitch live, but what I see from these videos from Carlos is it's everything you want to see in a pitcher. It's poised, his insane movement on his pitches, the velo that everybody loves to see, which is the eye test there. So I'm excited for this guy. I know he's Rule 5, and we'll talk about that later. But
Mhm.
this is one of the guys that I think, though, if the Yankees move one guy, I think unfortunately, he's one of the guys that they would move. Looks like they seem to. I mean, we love Schlittler and Carlos, but I'm excited if he gets past his deadline to see him on the 40 man because the Yankees absolutely have to keep this kid.
Yeah, I think what's impressive to me is, just looking at his stats, it's only, we're looking at 19 innings compared to the 83 he threw in Hudson Valley, but, his ground ball rate was 51% in Hudson Valley. It's 62.5 right now, which is just excellent. I think that's one of the been the best things about him is even though his walk rate was a little high, his control hasn't been the best. He keeps the ball on the ground and he does
Hmm.
not give up home runs. I guess he
Huge.
gave up,
I think he's
like
given up two in the entire season.
he's given up two the entire season. He gave up one in one of his starts in Somerset, and then he gave up one in Hudson Valley. But
Hmm.
that's such a I mean, I like Carlos Rodon. I was someone who, was saying high on him despite some of the struggles last year. But, that's his bugaboo is giving up the long ball. And we saw it in his most recent start where he gave up 3 home runs to the Phillies. And, having a guy, if he gets to be an MLB starter who keeps the ball in the yard and it's almost Max Fried-esque, from the right side. He has a lot of
Mm.
different stuff. He has a fastball, he has a slider, he has a sweeper, he has a ch changeup, he has a curve or splitter, I can't remember which. But he throws a lot of stuff. And that's, it keeps hitters off balance. And he's just, he really is impressed me and they've really helped him take that jump since joining from the Red Sox. And, yeah, Kev, you said it, he's definitely a guy, he might be on the chopping block in terms of the trade deadline, but I won't be upset if he's moved. I get it, but it's a guy I definitely hope stays selfishly.
Man, we all are selfish.
Ah, moving on to Scranton. You had Jesus Rodriguez. It's been hot as of late.
Who?
He's
Who?
400, 1143 OPS, three extra base hits.
Jeez.
He had a 2 run home. He had a 2 3 run home. Jesus, he had 2 3 run home runs in a game. I want to say
Can I pause you just
Friday.
1 second?
Sure.
I just want to say this quickly on George Lombard Jr. He's, even though the
Oh yeah.
hit tool has been a little inconsistent, batting average has been great. He's starting to show more game
Hmm.
power.
Yes, he's turning it
Hit
on lately.
five home runs, in the last, what is it, like 20 games, something like
Hmm.
that. It's good to see him kind of getting comfortable and that's been the big question. When's the power going to come? It's coming in lightly, but his ISO over the last like 3 weeks has been around 170, which is respectable. So that's been a good development.
Yeah,
He's having a really good
I
year.
just want to see progression, basically.
Yeah, and I think we are.
Yeah. Back to Scranton, you had Jesus Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He hit 400 with 1143 OPS, three extra base hits, 2 3 run home runs in a game. I want to say Friday. I want to say Friday, with 8 RBIs and 3 stolen bases. You had TJ Brumfield who hit 280 with a 767 OPS, three extra base hits, 3 RBIs. Spencer Jones had a three homer game with 5 RBIs. On the pitching front, you had Harrison Cohen. He pitched 3 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Zach Messenger, 3 innings, 1 earned run, a walk, 4 strikeouts. Eric Razelman pitched 2 1/3 innings of shutout baseball, no walks, 5 strikeouts.
Yeah, I want
I
to
mean,
start on hey go on,
yeah,
Kev,
well,
you
I was
start.
gonna start on Jesus too. So
That's there we
perfect. So,
go.
so my whole thing was like, listen, I remember the last time I was here, you told me to pick a kid, right? And he reminds me so much of the Houston, Yainer Diaz. Like I understand, and he's a guy who's been. Remember when we were watching him at the breakout game,
Yeah,
me and you, and we're like, how's his defense at third? I
yeah,
haven't seen much of it,
and that's
and
when he made the
Carlos
play.
looks at me and goes like, and he makes an insane play, literally the second pitch after that. So my whole thing was the Yankees kind of did that with Jason, where they would sub him out in the seventh, eighth, or ninth. I have my stuff about that, but I was like, why if Peraza is literally struggling and he's on the 40 man, why don't you give this kid who's been hitting in AAA and AA a shot? And then if it's shaky defense, then you bring in Peraza in the seven, eight, or nine. The fact that I never got to see him at least a couple of times in the majors really bugs me. And this is my internal fight with the New York Yankee front office. I kind of think they don't want him to come up here and struggle because that's going to lose his trade value. I understand that, but it's just you see these guys grind through the minors, Aaron, and you want them to see them in the Bronx. So
Absolutely.
so that was my whole thing about Jesus. I've been on this kid for a while now, and I was really hoping that this was the year that they call him up. And I don't now you got McMahon, so there's
There's
Yeah.
that.
I mean, well, so, I'm just going to start talking about the player, before I get into some things I've heard. But,
yeah
I mean, I don't want to say, because I've liked him. And I think he's definitely, has the potential to be an MLB player in some respect. Um, but yeah, he just has such a great ability to make contact, even if it's not very hard. But he does have a average 109.9 max exit velocity. His 90th percentile is a little less than average in AAA. Um, but yeah, he just makes a lot of contact. He does chase too much, which isn't, great. But I think the complaint and reason I was like, a little low on him. No, I don't want to say low, but not going crazy over when he first got promoted. It was he had like a 400 average and a 900 OPS, and I'm saying, I understand he's doing this, but a lot of it is just not how you want it to be done right now.
yeah
And he's, over the last month. He had a little cool down period in like
Hmm.
June, I would say, but over the last month, he has a 955 OPS and he has a over 200 ISO. And for what his main calling card is of making a lot of contact and being contact oriented guy, that is more than enough power production. That's 4 home runs, 2 doubles, 1 triple over the last 18 games. That's 200 ISO is more than enough power production for what he brings as a hitter. And, I think he would be a good guy to have. The ground ball percent is still a little high, but he's definitely a guy who has an MLB caliber bat in some respect. And now going on to what I've heard, I officially don't have sources. I just talk to people who
you
hear things, but I
got
think there is
little
something to
birdies.
it. But there's birdies say, maybe the Yankees think this guy has potential behind the plate. And I think this adds up because, we've heard about JC Escaro trade
Yeah.
rumors. We've heard some Rafael Flores. We haven't really heard anything about Jesus Rodriguez. And if you think about it from a team building aspect, and I think we've seen the Yankees learn over the last few days with acquiring Rosario and Slater, they obviously maybe have learned about roster construction a little bit. You're looking at a guy who, if you have Wells, Rice, and Rodriguez on a roster, that not only offers you a right-handed platoon at catcher, but you have Rice who can handle first base and behind the plate. You have Rodriguez who can handle behind the plate and third base.
hmm
That offers you a lot of
Swiss Army knife.
versatility with matchups and pinch hitting opportunities and guys who can give you catching ability, but not be able to offer more than just behind the plate. And, I could see, if Escaro was a righty, it would work perfectly because he could have, I know he plays a little bit third base. Rodriguez definitely plays it more, but, think from a roster construction point, if he's still here, after July 31st, after tomorrow, I wouldn't say I expect him to be up for the playoff push, but next year, it adds some really interesting wrinkles to the roster. It provides a good offset to Wells, who, I don't really want to go into a struggle right now. We're not here to talk about the major leagues, but having a righty hitting catcher would be nice. So, he's still, not my favorite prospect, but he's a guy I think that if he stays would be great. And Grisham just hit a game-tying home run.
Nice. And
Literally, as I was
I don't.
wishing that off the hit it.
I want to
I don't
add
know.
a little
I
bit.
was gonna say, I don't know if
Go
you
ahead.
noticed, but Escaro was sent down today. I don't know what that
Yes.
means
Yep.
for the catching depth.
I
Regarding Rodriguez, I don't know if for you guys, but for me, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Jason Kendall. I don't know if you guys remember it, but
ooh, that's throwback.
just a guy who hits like 280, 290, gets on base and he can steal
Mhm.
bases.
Thank you. Well, that was my whole thing because listen, I understand this is why a lot of people used to make fun of me about Caleb. Oh, but it's the home runs, the slugging, the pop, the exit velo. But he look at his on base. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's my whole thing. Like
Yeah.
some guys,
And he
yes, they
table
don't
setters.
yeah, exactly. They're not gonna slug, but they're gonna get on base. And that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Fight off he does chase. I get that. But again, guys getting on base creates more situations. The worst thing I in the majors is when you have a couple of guys like Jason Benarice fight off at bats, and then you get Volpe and Peraza swinging at the first pitch. You just erased everything that the prior two guys did. No, yeah, you're laughing, Carlos, but this is
No,
what I
I'm
mean. Like
laughing because it's
some of
true.
these guys,
I'm
because
laughing
some of
because
these,
it's true.
this is why I understand. Like this is very helpful when you got guys that grind out at bats throughout the entire lineup, and that's something that he could do. He gets on base, and I said
Yeah.
this last year about Caleb too. Like I get that the power numbers are not there, but you can't expect the Yankees to throw out nine guys that slug. It's impossible in any lineup. So you
Yeah.
got
No,
it, and I
it's
think they're learning from it as with the moves that you're seeing them make lately.
absolutely. No, he's a guy I have him around my 20th ranked prospect. There might be some adjustment to that, especially as the trade deadline passes. But like I said, I understanding how the Yankees tend allegedly feel about him, and I can see how that works in the future roster construction. I would definitely like to see him stay. And I don't think he's your full-time starter, ever going to be an all-star, but as a
No,
reserve who can give you sometime between third and catch and pitch hitting, I think that could be very valuable.
Mhm. All right. After we're done with the player of the weeks, I wanted to talk a little bit about Spencer Jones and what your thoughts are on what the Yankees should do next with him.
Oh man. Listen, I've been a Spencer Jones believer for a while. I was definitely, definitely understood the concerns with his approach, but it's seeing how the chase rate went down in Double A, and seeing it was interesting 'cause, yeah, chase rate
I
started
like
going down this first few weeks,
I look.
power was going up.
Yeah, I was gonna say I look at the progress. I like to look at I don't look at prospects
Yeah.
entire season. I look at progress. I look at it in chunks. And if you're looking at just his AAA numbers, he's hitting over 400 there, an OPS of over 1400, 18 extra base hits, 13 home runs. His
Mhm.
walk rate is just under 11%. A strikeout rate is at 25%.
Yeah. No, I mean, 70% zone contact rate isn't good, but for a regular player, but he's not a regular player. He is just every time he makes contact, his ability to hit in the air so consistently is one of the craziest things I've seen. I mean, look, like just
To either field.
yeah, no, but I mean, just last year he had a 42.3% ground ball rate, which is, it's not awful, but it's
I know
definitely
it's up
not
to see.
great.
Hmm.
But yeah, this year he's a 31.4% ground ball
Relift.
rate in Double A, 30.6 in Triple A. Like when you're hitting the ball in the air for line drives most of the time, you're going to create damage, and especially how hard he hits the ball. And yeah, he's able to just cover the whole plate, and he can hit it to left field with ease. It's
Easy power.
I understand. I totally respect people who have the perspective on, yeah, it's great. He's doing great. Sell high on him before it crashes again. I totally get that. I think that's a very fair perspective.
Hmm.
But I'm someone who believes, you're talking about a guy who can give you power potential while playing really good outfield defense and giving
Hmm.
you speed. And, I don't think it's a one-for-one comparison to Joey Gallo, but I do think there is a lot of Joey Gallo in there. I just think it's with, if you want to construct a better roster, having him be on your major league opening day roster in 2026 makes too much sense.
I think I was talking to Nick about it, and I said, you know what, Cashman has a really tough decision to make. I don't envy him because
Hmm.
there's a huge risk and huge reward, right? If he
Yeah.
pans out, you have a guy who could, be on this franchise for over 10 years. If it doesn't, like you said, you could have Joey Gallo on your hands. So do you roll the dice and keep him, or do you roll the dice and trade him?
I will say it's just because I remember seeing someone say something about how today, like, they didn't trade Oswald Peraza, they wanted to hold on to him, and they obviously have gone down with that ship. There's something very different about what Oswald Peraza was as a prospect versus what Spencer Jones is. And, we can go back and maybe say, yeah, they should have traded Peraza. If they bring up Jones and, sink or swim with him, and then maybe it does end up sinking, I don't think I can, give them any BS for that because just what he could be is
Right.
so monumental.
Hmm.
If
You don't want to be
he's,
wrong.
yeah, if he's if he's in the MLB hitting like a sub 35% ground ball rate with roughly 70% in zone contact rate, you're talking about an all-star, perennial all-star.
Mhm.
Like for what he does when he does make contact. So, it like you said, it's not an enviable decision Cashman has to make, but for me, I almost just, it's too tempting not to see what it could be.
It,
For
it,
me, it's clear that the Yankees front office loves Spencer Jones. I mean, to the extent that me and Carlos say that they kind of like him more than Jason. But at the end of the day, I kind of I'm in the middle of it. Aaron's actually pulling me more towards his side, because it's like I feel like there's we all saw how horrible Joey Gallo was, and honestly, I have to think that a lot of the Joey Gallo had to be his mentality, even though it didn't work out for him after that moving forward. But he did hit 40 home runs with Texas, so it's like, but this kid is faster. Um, I'm sorry, the comparisons to I don't know if he's working with Teacher Man or not. I don't know anything
ooh,
about that, Spencer.
no.
But if you look at 2017 Judge, he does have a similarity in his swing and he's one legged and all that stuff. He doesn't like the comparisons either, by
Maybe
the
they
way.
talk. Maybe they talk.
But
That could be
yeah,
why
and
we can't
I
I
mean,
change.
mean,
they did talk in spring training. I
Yeah.
think it was Brian Hoke
okay.
posted an article, and they were saying, yeah, he was, saying Judge was saying to him, when you're a bigger guy, you have to be, it's being quicker to the plate, just some things, it wasn't like telling him like, oh yeah, you do this with your swing. He
No,
wasn't
no,
giving him
no,
those
no, no.
instructions, but more the mentality of being their size and
Mhm.
being able to hit like that. And it's obviously what he's done as he's completely tinkered with his stance.
If
It's
you look
really
at it, yeah,
helped him. Yeah,
it,
no,
it
but
has.
it's worked. He's
I,
I think he's getting lower, and getting lower is helping him put balls into the air. It's
Mhm.
helped his bat path, and now he's getting a position where he's creating that loft more easily. Which
and he's a
yeah,
great
that's
defender.
what's yeah.
And he's a great defender. Speed's there. I mean, the speed. I remember I texted you when I went and saw him in Somerset, and I said he went from first to third, and I was like, I've never seen something like it. So it's like when you see, and this is why a lot of guys we get a lot of flack. I'm pretty sure you get it, Aaron, as well. When we say more, we're not trading this guy, and a lot of 80% of the fan base is like trade everybody. You haven't seen these guys. Go out to your local double A, single A park and watch some of your prospects. I tell that to people all the time. Like go and then you understand why sometimes guys hold on to certain prospects. I'm in the middle with Jones. But I would like to see next year to see how he looks because he's obviously made a lot of changes when it comes to striking out. He's on pace of what, maybe 120 compared to 200 last year. Where's
Yeah.
he at now?
I mean, to
95?
be fair, you got to remember he did miss like 30 games,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that too.
the
But
strikeout rate in general is better.
correct. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Carlos. You could be the tiebreaker, but I'm like I'm in the middle with Jones. I don't know.
Bro,
I'm not gonna pick trade or
you
keep.
can't ask me because I'm biased. I'm gonna say keep him, right? I'm gonna say
Yeah.
keep him because like I was telling Aaron, I'm like you're rolling the dice. It's a huge risk if you trade him away and he turns out to be the left-handed Aaron Judge. Not saying that's who I
He
think
doesn't
he's
even
gonna
have to
be.
be that.
I had always maintained that when I saw him, I saw more of a Paul O'Neill kind of guy before he got more loft in his swing. But I would love to see it in a completely homegrown outfield.
Yeah.
That's my take on that.
No, it's
And I
definitely,
don't see how shelling out. $500 million for a free agent outfielder next season. I
Hey,
don't.
Listen, I get how Kyle Tucker is, top 15 player in the game. I respect people who want him. Like I'm not gonna say,
of course, yeah.
you're
Yeah,
the
no doubt.
Yankees, you should want the top guys.
Of course.
But when I think about, it kind of goes back to Soto this offseason. Like I wanted Soto, like I said, I'm from DC, I was at his first ever game. I loved him, had him taken away from me, got him back, lost him
You
again.
were
It
you were a
sucked.
Victor Robles fan. Stop it.
Uh,
Wow, that's
do I
throwback,
need to
Victor.
go get the four Soto jerseys from my
Robles was the
closet?
number no, Robles was the number one prospect in that
Robles was the
system,
higher prospect,
even when
yeah.
Soto was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my point is, as much as I would love to have Soto back, just from a roster building standpoint, it didn't make much sense. And the same thing goes for
Yes.
Kyle Tucker. It just doesn't make the most sense. And while it's maybe something you make it work for, that type of player, I can't deny that having Spencer Jones in center,
It's
having
intriguing.
Jason
Mhm.
and left if he's still there, and Judge and right. I still think you can bring back Cody, and you can kind of work him some in the outfield, some at first base.
Hmm.
Keeps that
Agreed.
flexibility. Keep Rice, have that him play some first base. Kind of the first base catcher thing I was talking about. I think it just creates a lot more,
Flexibility.
a lot more flexibility, and it also saves you some money with
A
that.
lot of money.
And
Like
not that.
Hal has to be looking and saying, hey, "Look, I have this kid down there who's tearing the cover off the ball. Why wouldn't we give him a shot?"
Yeah,
And listen, the Yankees have gotten a lot of flack. I like to say as of late you can't really say that because when you got guys like Augustin Ramirez, Caleb Durbin, and Josh Smith in Texas, they're all hitting. The Yankees have been able to come up with position players that are having successful seasons. Ben Rice is a much better hitter as well this year than he was last year. But my whole thing is that the Yankees obviously have something when it comes to developing pitching, and that is your a strong suit. Catching as well, we were very deep in catching, and when you look at some of the guys that we have, we do well there as well. I really would love to see a homegrown outfield. I mean, like
yeah,
you just said, Spencer, Jason, and Judge. I mean, how can you hate that?
yeah,
Spencer's gonna have insane range in center field. It's gonna ease up for both Jason and Judgy. So yeah, man, I hope
yeah,
they keep both of them. Jason's already proven that he can be at least an average bat in the major leagues. And he's only 22, so
yeah,
that's gonna get should get better. So I mean, yeah, man, there's a lot of upside, and what people need to
yeah,
understand with Spencer, his ceiling is insanely high, but his
yeah,
floor is concerning
very high.
low. It's concerning, yeah. So that's why I get why people say that, but I mean, I don't know, man. Like you kind of just want to see it play out as a
Yeah.
Yankee
Also,
fan.
I just gotta say, like, I'm a big Brendan Jones fan, and the more I
Oh my
watch
God,
him
I
in
love him,
the
bro.
more I
Yeah.
watch him in Somerset, the more I believe he's a starting MLB outfielder. And Dylan Lewis has a really nice blend of power, speed, and his contact has been up in Hudson Valley. Like, I don't know where those guys fit. They probably might end up having to be trade pieces, but man, I would love to see them in the Yankees organization on the Yankees. There's a real depth of outfield talent right now. Um, but yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like I said, if you get some amazing offer for Spencer, I don't think that's out there right now. Maybe there will be one in the winter, but it's going to be interesting to watch.
It seems like people want him now, though, too.
I agree.
So,
I mean, after the trade from today, I don't know how that happens.
what you mean?
What?
Didn't they just add
Oh,
another outfielder today?
oh yeah. Well, I wasn't talking about for this year.
Oh,
I'd rather wait
No.
till
just real quick,
2026.
Okay.
Do we want to go into the trade talk now? That was
No,
the next
yeah, in
topic.
a minute, but just
Okay.
real quick, I piggybacking off something that you said real quick regarding catchers. Just wanted to give a shout out real quick to Yankees prospect watch. He said that he tweeted today that 13 of the 91 catchers that in Major League Baseball this year were from the Yankees farm system.
Excuse me, say that again. How many?
13 of the 91.
People are gonna say a goose is a Gus Bus is a DH. All right, calm down. All right, calm down. I
So
love that they give him a
Got
nickname and everything.
came through as a catcher. He was good enough being a catcher to be a big enough prospect to net Jazz Chisholm. So like,
Absolutely,
who
absolutely,
cares?
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a Goose fan. I'm not gonna talk shit about him. The dude just
No, no, yeah, yeah, Aaron.
and I love
No,
to
no,
watch him. Bro.
yeah,
He's an exciting guy to watch.
yeah. I mean, it's just
I might go this weekend. The Yankees are in town.
Go,
Hmm.
please, and say what's up to him because yeah.
Oh,
I
but
listen,
honestly,
so, and it's a just I just want to say something briefly about what Aaron just said. Sometimes like some of these guys we actually like talk to because I go to Somerset a lot. I talk to Carlos. I talked to Agus a lot as well, and actually went to one of his card signings here and I helped him translate. So I was there with him all day. So I told him when he got traded, it's a gift. I know you don't feel that way, but you're gonna be up in the majors next year. I promise you that because the opportunity that you weren't gonna get with the Yankees, the Marlins are gonna give you right
Yep.
away.
And
So
that's a great way
sometimes
to
it
look
works
at
out
it.
for both people. So
Yeah. No, that's absolutely the way it has to be looked at. It's like you know, I'm a fan of his. I'm happy to see him doing well. We talked to the guys who traded Griffin Herring. I was a big fan. Oh, I love that. It's you want to see these guys have the opportunities, and that's just the sad reality of it. There's only
yeah,
26 spots on the Yankees,
yep,
and there's not enough room for the 90, more than 100 guys in the minor leagues. So.
gotcha,
yeah.
perfect.
Moving into the trades that we've seen over the
Aye,
last
aye,
couple
aye.
of days, how are you guys feeling about them?
I
I
mean,
feel
you want to go first, Aaron? No,
no, you got it.
no. I was just gonna say, I really. The Yankees kind of did what they did last year, where they got Jazz a little early. They got McMahon. I don't know if they do another big splash. I know they're trying to get relief help, and they're trying, but two big guns just while we're recording this, two big guns just got traded today, which was Helsley and Joan Duran. And by the way, Duran and Jason are from the same spot, La Esperanza and DR, which I was like, oh, maybe they wants to come over here, but no, that didn't happen. And we know what a trade like that would have cost the Yankees. So I don't know. I think there may be a couple of more small moves, but I don't see a big splash. And if there's a big splash, like we just said, it's gonna be bittersweet because we're gonna like what we're getting, but some of the guys that are gonna have to be traded away are some of our favorite guys. So
Yeah.
um yeah,
And if
I
you're
think the Yankees are done
and
though.
if you're looking back at the Duran trade, I think the Phillies traded number 4 and number 6.
Yeah, but it's not even that because Tate or Tate, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He was
Yeah.
an 18, 19-year-old catcher in low way who's, we I don't want to say they're like for like with George Lombard, but he's a guy who's going to quickly move up boards, and you're probably looking at a guy who will be top, 30 to start the 2026 season, I would say. And then Mick Abel, he's kind of this borderline top 100. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I could see why Minnesota would want him. And, a comparable to us is, I mean, if you're going to say, oh, what that'd be like, that's like Ben Rice and Cam Schlittler. Would you want to give up Ben Rice and Cam Schlittler? Maybe not, because those are both two MLB ready guys, but, maybe Cam Schlittler. It's
Well,
hard to really put into words.
one for one, the number 4 and the number 6 for the Yankees would have been Spencer Jones and ERC.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't like to look at it that way just because, these prospect valuations are different, but
Well, they vary
it's,
depending on the
it's,
publication as well.
yeah, but, I think those were two very legitimate prospects that they gave up. And it's, we probably could have matched. I don't know what Minnesota was thinking, but yeah, it would have been, one of Hay and, um, one of Hay or Schlittler. And, I think probably Ben Rice, seeing how they went for tight. I think they wanted to catcher.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
And
it's
and
tough to put the math together, but
and I don't think the Yankees want to deal Ben Rice. I think they want to get blown away if they're gonna deal him.
probably, yeah, it's tough. And I think that maybe there's some extra leverage against the Yankees within these trade talks. It wouldn't surprise me.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's, obviously I would like to have Duran, but I like the moves they made. Ryan McMahon's never a guy who was a great hitter in Colorado, but and I think going into this year or this season, hasn't been his best. But I think if he starts pulling the ball in the air more, I think it'll quickly turn around. Colorado can be a hard place to play mentally and physically, and it's I don't love the money he's on. I would have liked to have gotten, some. My issue is I don't have a problem trading for Ryan McMahon. My thing is, which doesn't make me love the deal, is Griffin Herring. Yeah, he's probably not going to be, doesn't have a lane with the Yankees, but I feel like you still could have maybe used him to get someone better or get more money from McMahon. So like, it doesn't feel like you did the best use of dealing Herring, but it filled a need. I think we've already seen the impact he's had this year. So it's, I like that one. Rosario is a guy I've been talking about forever. Basically since the season started, this guy just feels like such an easy fit. And giving up Clayton Beater, the
Struggled,
Yankees have
okay.
had bullpen issues for months now, and he could barely get a run in. It's pretty revealing that, the Yankees clearly didn't think he had good enough control to make it. So,
Yep.
it's hard to be upset with that. Brown, I know he was having a really good year in DSL, but, you can't complain about moving a guy, who's so
Who's
far away
years
and it's
away, yeah.
years away, years away. So yeah, I like that deal to give the lineup more balance, and go you can go on before we get to Slater, because I feel like that one will be more controversial of a discussion.
Let me just chime in real again. I'm prefacing this by saying I'm a prospect hugger. My
Yeah, we
big
all know that,
my
Los.
biggest issue is kind of sort of what Aaron says. It's like when they make deals, I feel like you could have used that player to do this and that instead. And like Ahmed Rosario, $2 million, they could have got him in the off season. I know
That's
Which
yeah.
maybe he
we all
didn't
mentioned.
maybe he didn't want to come here, but then again, CC Sabathia didn't want to come here either. Money talks, right? So those are
Yeah.
my issues. My issue is the lack of foresight from the front office, which has an inability to look down the field. They can't see two, three moves. They plan the season as I feel they plan the season, in my opinion. They plan the season as if everything is going to go perfectly. They don't really
Mhm.
have. I don't feel like they have contingency plans.
No, I think you're absolutely right, but I don't think this discussion I mean, I don't think it belongs here. It's not like I don't think it's a fair criticism of what they're doing now. It's That's something that should be criticized in December. Why aren't you, getting that right-handed bat to give you? I mean, obviously we all knew they were leaving a wide open hole in third base. Even with if Cabrera had stayed healthy, you're
Doesn't
still
matter.
talking
Not.
about this, right-handed hitter you need. Unless they some reason really believe Peraza is going to be the guy.
No.
And that's the thing. I
Yeah,
don't think they have believed in him. I don't think they've ever
They
believed
no,
never,
in
I
him.
don't think they
I
ever
don't think they've
believed in
ever
him.
believed in him. Even when they called him up, I think it was just because the fans were clamoring for it and
yeah,
begging for it and
but
banging on the
yeah,
doors for him to come up. Because when he came up, he did hit over 300. I think he started two of your playoff games. He did everything right when he came up, and then the next season he lost a quote unquote open competition, and I can be mad at that, but the truth of the matter is that Volpe outplayed him in the spring training, and he
He
was
yeah,
did,
bob
yep.
out right,
and
and that's it.
I don't think the Yankees did anything wrong in terms of how they handled him after it was clear they weren't going to trade him,
Yeah.
and that when he was at his highest value.
But if
But
they
like
if
Well,
you feel the way you
well,
yeah,
felt about him, then you shouldn't have gone into the season with him. Ahmed
yeah,
Rosario,
exactly.
let's
well,
say
well,
Yeah,
this is my whole cover, like, and to piggyback a little bit what Aaron said about the McMahon trade, as it's the value to me that bothers me a little bit because it's like these were needs in game five of the World Series. Everybody saw what happened there. And yes, it got blown out of proportion with the Yankees fundamentals. I get that, but we had issues at third, and you were gonna lose Verdugo there, so it's like
in game two of the World Series, Jose Trevino had the pinch hit because they had Alex Vesia on the mound. They wanted a right-handed bat, and yeah,
Jose
it's why,
Trevino.
yeah, why
So
didn't you get a right-handed bat
I,
yeah, that's
Listen,
what
we
yeah.
wanted a med last year. We were talking about him at the deadline. We wanted Rosario, and it's like he fits perfectly for the flexibility that the Yankees look
Hmm.
for. I get maybe that, like Carlos said, he want to get here, but my whole thing was, my guy, you didn't have a third baseman in the offseason. You decided to extend the manager and not get a third, and that's something that me and people were joking about. But it's like you had this issue with Peraza struggling at the plate. It only got worse. Don't tell me that you believed in him. You knew that Cabrera cannot hit right sided. I love Cabrera, but I've said this a lot of times. I think he just should give up that side of the plate and focus
Hmm.
on the left side. Um, and it's like now you address this need, which needed to be addressed 6 months ago, and then you got to pay this guy $60 million for 2 years. Like that's
Yeah,
where I was like, come on, and now you're
yeah.
platooning him.
And to be fair, I will say though that the third base market really wasn't great
Nah, it wasn't
in the
great.
offseason. It wasn't going to be great this offseason. So like I'm okay that it ultimately came to like to needing to trade for a guy you'd have around for a few years, and I like McMahon. But yeah, I just think that we talk about those why didn't you sign a Rosario type in the offseason? That's more of an offseason discussion. It's you can't do anything about this point. You have to make that move. That hole is there
Oh no,
because you let it be
absolutely.
there. So no, I think the McMahon was, like I said, maybe you could have done something a little bit more with Herring, but I think Rosario you gave up. What you gave up for Rosario was very fair to give up, and I think the Slater trade. I know Gage I like Gage, but I think there was limitation there, and I can't complain about giving a guy who's maybe, his ceiling
Regarding
is a
McMahon,
4.
regarding McMahon, it locks down the third base position. Now you have
Yeah.
legit
Yep.
defense there, which is fine and dandy. Um,
Mhm.
I just hope he could be like a Chase Headley at this point because third base
Yeah.
to me has been so bad since the A-Rod era.
Mhm.
He at least gives you a legit third base. So I'm hoping he can produce like a Chase Headley at least. Um, regarding the Ahmed trade or the Gage the trade of Gage, I understand that they have so many pitchers coming up, right? You have
Mhm.
three pitchers that you drafted last season that were on the IL, including Hendry. You drafted more pitchers this season. You need spots, so I
Yes.
understand that. I'm not mad about that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I know, I just think getting, yeah, he's a, solid defender out there. And, I know your concern, was about Dominguez's development. And I can see, I know you're a big Dominguez lover. My thing is he had 4 months to improve, work on his right-handed hitting,
But that's
and it
not in
just
game.
hasn't
But that's
got
not in
there.
game.
But he's
But in
11 for he's
games.
but he's 11 for his last 36. He's getting better.
I'm not saying he isn't, but my point is, I don't think going, when you're going into a playoff push, bringing in a guy, who can do well against left-handed hitters, I don't think that's killing Dominguez's development. I think this is, a move for, okay, we have this hole in our game, we want to build up that bench, and it's like we kind of talked about. If you need a left-handed hit, a right-handed hitter in Game 5 of the World Series, you don't want Jose Trevino up there. You want, oh my God, Anthony Volpe just hit a game tying home run in the bottom of the ninth.
Shout out to
Wow.
Vulcan.
Yeah, Devin Williams gave up a 2-run bomb in the top to lose the lead, and Volpe just I'm so happy to see him swinging it well. I just wish he could have some more consistency. I can't deal with these huge. All right, sorry. I still,
Can I ask you a quick question just to touch on
yeah,
that? Do you think
yeah.
that he does need days off? That he's clearly
Oh,
like a guy that
absolutely, he needs
thank
more
you.
days off.
Thank
Like,
you.
if you're playing,
Thank you.
yeah,
They play
I
he's
was
the only guy who plays 162 games. It's like
like, if you're talking about like just your usual 6 game week. I know sometimes you have 7 game weeks, but if you're talking about a 6 game week, um, then oh shit, Mike Soroka to the Cubs. Okay, sorry. If you're talking
it's
like a
trade
six
deadline,
game
guys.
week,
We're
yeah,
going nuts. We're all looking at
I'm
our
gonna
phones. I
another
get it.
article
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to write about. Anyway, um, yeah, if if you have a 6 game week, give him one day off in
Yeah,
those games. I think it's best for him and his, mental stability. And, if he was providing the offense he is right now with what the defense he had his first 2 years, we'd be loving Volpe. It's just
absolutely.
that's the area that's been disappointing this year, but I know defense can be very up and down. So I'm not, I think the microscope is on him, especially with George Lombard
Yes,
kind
yes,
of
it is.
starting to come breathe down his neck, but like I'm not giving up on him. So yeah. Anyways, going back to Slater though, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Dominguez he has to pitch hit for, but that's just such a having that right-handed bat to come off can be so helpful, and it just makes the roster a bit more complete. And I know the Yankees, it seems like they're probably a little more hesitant on what they think of Jason, but I don't think there's a need to, like get rid of him right now. And I think they still think he can be valuable to the team. But you're talking about a guy who's 4 months in left field. The defense is getting better, but it's still not there. And his right-handed hitting is still not there. I don't think it's saying we don't think you can develop that. I think it's just saying, hey, you're a 22-year-old rookie, and we have a chance to win a World Series with Aaron Judge in his prime right now. So like we want to cover our bases and have this available to us. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I'll keep my mouth shut to not get in trouble with that.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah.
No, no, Carlos. I will say the other day, a couple of, I think the Yankees pinch hit for Volpe the other. I forgot what game it was, and I'm starting to see where they're like, "Listen, guys, everybody's seeing what we've been trying to tell you that you can't just give an open red carpet to one prospect. And if you're gonna like, if guys are struggling, you're gonna have to do what's necessary to win the game. And at the end of the day, the Yankees are in a playoff push. Carlos, I don't love it either because I get how can a player get better right-handed if you're taking the bats away from him. But I think don't tell me this guy like for if you're gonna platoon Jason next year, I'm gonna lose my mind because it's like he is getting better as of late. I get that you just got Slater for the play. I agree as well, but I mean, you got to give this guy You gave Cabrera over 120, 30 at bats from the right side, and you're gonna give Jason 50, 60? Like, come on, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's why I was like, I get what Carlos is, but I also get what Aaron is. So I'm like, again, I'm gonna play the referee and in the middle and be like, I understand what the Yankees are doing because of the playoff push. And we don't know how Judge is gonna be. I
He
think
has
it's a necessary
87.
thing.
He has 98 plate appearances versus righty or versus lefties. I mean, I think they've given him a pretty solid run out. With obviously there's been some containment, but I think they've given him a pretty solid run out versus lefties. You don't face a lot of them.
I just wanted him to get the same runway Volpe got. That's it.
I will say the one difference I feel like gets, I'm not saying it's you're oblivious to it, but I feel like I've seen some people miss it, is just that when you're talking about a guy, there's a lot of guys who can play left field and there's not a lot of guys who can play shortstop. And it's, obviously like we said, I think he does need more days off, but I do get how it's easier to have more of a lock on a spot when there's maybe one other guy on the
Well,
roster who
no,
can
I'm not
play
talking
that
about just in terms of.
position.
I'm not talking about just in terms of that. I mean, giving him
Yeah.
the benefit of the doubt type of thing is what I'm
But
referring to.
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like you
I
said,
think we
obviously,
could. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we can have that discussion.
yeah,
But
no,
like, I understand what you mean.
no, I totally get it. A shortstop and a left field, there's two different responsibilities, two different aspects of the game. I totally get that, but I'm just talking about, you know, getting the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I definitely think there's sometimes a little, too harsh on him. But
And the kid is dynamic and
I'm
adding
I'm laughing
and,
because
and
I've never seen something like this where Yankee fans were calling for him, clamoring for Jason Dominguez. He arrived, they were so excited, and it seems like within a year they're like, okay, yes, trade him for a relief pitcher.
I can't listen to this. You can't argue about Wells and Volpe having a sub 700 OPS, and then you got a guy who consistently stays there, and then you're bitching about like his like his defense and stuff like that when he's 22 and they moved him to left field. Like there's a lot of things if you and sometimes this is where I get into like the if you haven't played baseball, there's a third deck. Like the same game that he lost in Seattle, he lost a fly ball. Randy Rosarena, who's been playing baseball for how many years, lost one as well. Nobody talks about that. Just you have to be patient with your prospects. In your case, Aaron, I want to see Volpe bounce back from this. So that's why I was like, this was the year for me for Volpe to be like, I'm done. But now I'm like, I gotta see one more. I gotta see if he bounces back, and he's gonna tell you more about the kid. If he can't bounce back from this type of year or this struggle that he's having defensively,
mhm.
then that's when you're gonna have to pivot. You know what I'm saying? So as funny as it sounds, this year made me want to see one more year of Volpe to see if he could bounce back from this type of year.
Well, it's not
Yeah,
like they have a
exactly.
choice. It's not like they have a choice,
That's another
Yeah,
thing.
there's not gonna be a shortstop really available to find. It's either gonna be him or George Lombard. It feels like at this point. So
and you don't want to see Lombard. I don't. He's not
not
ready.
right now for sure.
No,
No, no, there's
no,
no
he's
need to
not.
push this kid. No,
No, absolutely not. So yeah, I think all the good three trades were good. I would say, all in that B minus range, but obviously we still need to get some pitching. Um,
Still
but
got one
yeah,
more
no,
day for that.
huh?
Still got one more day for that.
Still got one more day for that.
But
Yeah.
remember,
So
Cashman does not get into bidding wars. He doesn't do that with the
no,
trade. So
uh,
it's either you're
yeah.
gonna deal with
So
him or not.
and I don't think, and he's the and based on the reports that I'm like we were reading off everybody, like if they ask for some guys like Spencer or George, he's just like, no, I'm good, and then he just doesn't even bother because it's like that's like you're telling me to hang up the phone. I'm not. I'm telling you, I'm not trading those guys.
yeah, it seems like there's some
So
smoke with JC Escarra. I know San Diego is a team that's popularly mentioned with there. I bet I could see him trading for like, I mean, I saw some Sandy talk. I could potentially see
Hmm.
that. I think Anthony Bender there is maybe a name that would make sense, but it hasn't been talked about. But yeah, I think that you're right. He doesn't want to get into a crazy bidding war, which gives me some pause in Bednar. But I think he's probably comfortable trading two of the prize pitching prospects, those being, but maybe not Schiller just because his MLB help right now, but two of Hess, Cunningham, ERC, and LeGrand Hay. It would not surprise me if he's comfortable. Sorry,
I don't want to touch
comfortable.
LeBron. Do not touch LeBron, please. No, Aaron, don't
Yeah.
say LeBron. Let's see this kid now, man. We got
This
this
guy,
kid,
this
bro.
guy
I'm
and
just
Bobby,
saying.
bro.
I'm just
Keep looking out his
saying.
name out your mouth.
No, no,
I'm just saying I could see
yeah.
one of those like one of those 4 or 5 guys, or two of those guys available in the right deals. You know, um, So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but that's what they definitely need. But I think it's been a good start in building up a better roster, and I do like, I really liked Griffin Herring. I liked Gage Zeal. I thought Josh Gross could have
Yeah,
had some
I
really
was a
good
Gross fan.
reliever potential. But I can't say I'm mad about, that's the hard part, maybe a prospect hugger and a fan of the
Hmm.
MLB team is you got to learn to let go. And I looking at it from a just the objective perspective, they were good deals, and those are guys who can afford to move, and I hope them wish them all the best.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna leave it at that. We're gonna go into a couple more topics, but we ran a little long here, so I want to thank you guys both for coming on. Thank you guys in the chat. Appreciate you all. Make sure you hit that like and hit the subscribe on the way out. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.